I'm 42 years old. Married for 11 years. 2 kids. A dog. A mortgage that still has the smell of fresh ink on it. From the outside, my life looks stable, boring in that comforting way people envy when they're tired of chaos. I used to think that meant I'd done something right. My wife, Laura, used to tell me she loved our quiet life. Sunday pancakes. School drop-offs. Netflix arguments that never really mattered. We weren't perfect, but we were us. Or at least that's what I believed. If you'd asked me a year ago if I trusted her, I would have laughed. She was my safest place. The person I told everything to. The one who knew my worst habits and stayed anyway. That's what makes this so hard to write. Because Laura still tells me she loves me. She says it calmly, convincingly, like it's a fact that shouldn't be questioned. And yet, at the same time, she is actively preparing a future with another man. Not a fling. Not a mistake. A future. I'm posting here because I don't know where else to put this. I haven't fully processed it. Some days I feel numb. Other days I wake up shaking, like my body knows something my mind keeps trying to deny. Life didn't explode all at once. It cracked slowly. Quietly. And I missed the sound of it breaking. Before all of this, our life felt manageable. Predictable in a way that made me feel safe. We both worked. We argued about money sometimes, about who forgot to buy milk, about dumb things that felt huge in the moment and irrelevant now. Laura and I met in our late 20s. She was warm, sharp, emotionally intuitive in ways I wasn't. I admired that. I relied on it. She handled the emotional temperature of the house. I handled logistics. It worked for a long time. After the kids were born, things changed, like they always do. Less intimacy. More exhaustion. But I never thought that meant danger. I thought it was just a season. Looking back, I realize how much I took stability for granted. I assumed love, once built, was self-sustaining. I didn't notice how often Laura seemed distant, how she'd scroll her phone at night with the screen angled away from me. I told myself I was being paranoid. She started talking about finding herself again. About how she didn't recognize who she'd become. I listened, but I didn't hear the urgency. I thought we had time. That's the part that hurts the most now. I thought time was on our side. The red flags weren't dramatic. No lipstick on collars. No secret trips. Just small shifts I explained away because it was easier than asking hard questions. Laura started staying later at work. Not outrageously late, just enough to be believable. She became protective of her phone. Password changes. Notifications silenced. When I asked, she joked that I was becoming that guy. I hated that. I didn't want to be suspicious. I wanted to be trusting. So I swallowed it. She also started dressing differently. Not better or worse, just intentional. Like she was preparing to be seen. When I complimented her, she smiled, but it felt distant, like the compliment landed somewhere else. Emotionally, she pulled back. Conversations became transactional. Logistics about kids and bills, nothing deeper. When I tried to reconnect, she said she was tired. Stressed. Overwhelmed. I believed her because it made sense. Because I loved her. There was also this new name that came up occasionally. Daniel. A colleague. A good listener. She mentioned him casually, almost carelessly, like someone you don't need to hide because you're not hiding anything. I remember thinking, I should pay attention to that. I didn't. The moment doubt really set in wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost stupid. I was using Laura's laptop to print something. Mine had died, and she said it was fine. As the browser opened, a chat window popped up. Not explicit. Not sexual. Just familiar. Too familiar. Daniel, I miss you today. Laura, me too. Last night felt like real life. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I stared at the screen, frozen. My brain scrambled for explanations. Work talk? Emotional venting? Inside jokes I didn't understand? I closed the laptop without printing anything. My hands were shaking. I remember washing them in the sink like I'd touched something dirty. That night I barely slept. Laura noticed. She asked what was wrong. I said nothing, because I didn't know how to ask a question that would change everything. The next day, I convinced myself I was overreacting. That if something was wrong, she would tell me. That our marriage meant more than a few lines of text. Deep down, though, something had shifted. Trust doesn't usually shatter in one moment. It erodes. Grain by grain. And I felt the ground starting to give. Once suspicion enters your head, it poisons everything. Every late night felt intentional. Every smile at her phone felt like a betrayal. I hated the version of myself I was becoming, quietly observant, mentally cataloging inconsistencies. I didn't confront her right away. Part of me was terrified of being wrong. Another part was terrified of being right. I started replaying memories. Her emotional distance. Her sudden interest in what life could look like in 5 years. Her insistence that love could change forms. At dinner one night, she mentioned Daniel again. Something about how he understood her in ways people usually didn't. I felt something hot rise in my chest, but I said nothing. Instead, I asked if she was happy. She paused. Too long. I care about you, she said carefully. Not I love you. I noticed that too. That pause followed me everywhere. To work. To the gym. Into my sleep. I started having dreams where she was standing just out of reach, telling me everything was fine while walking away. I wanted to grab her phone. Check her messages. Prove something. I didn't, mostly because I was scared of what I'd find. There's a special kind of hell in knowing something is wrong but still sharing a bed with the person causing it. The turning point came on a random Tuesday. No anniversary. No fight. Just exhaustion. Laura came home late again. I asked where she'd been. She said she needed air after work. I asked if she was seeing someone. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She didn't deny it. She just sat down, put her head in her hands and said, "It's not that simple." That sentence ended something in me. I pressed. Harder than I ever had before. My voice shook. I hated that. I asked how long. I asked if she loved him. I asked if she'd slept with him. She cried. Real tears. But she didn't answer right away. Finally she said, "I didn't mean for it to happen. But yes. I love him." I remember staring at her mouth, trying to understand how those words came from someone who used to kiss me goodnight. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. That was the moment I realized my marriage wasn't in danger. It was already over. I just hadn't caught up yet. The full truth didn't come out all at once. It leaked piece by piece like poison. She told me it started as emotional support. Long conversations. Shared frustrations. Feeling seen. Then dinners. Then hotel rooms during work trips. She said Daniel wanted a life with her. That he talked about houses, travel, starting over. She said it scared her, but also excited her. Then she said the part that still makes my chest tighten. "I'm not leaving you right now," she said. "I love you. But I need to see where this goes." I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. Like my body rejected the logic before my brain could. "So you're planning a future with him," I said, "while staying married to me?" She nodded. Like it was reasonable. Like I was supposed to understand. She said she didn't want to hurt the kids. That she was confused. That love wasn't finite. I felt stupid for ever thinking love meant loyalty. The days after that conversation blurred together. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not my friends. I felt ashamed, like her betrayal somehow reflected my failure. I oscillated between anger and desperation. One minute I wanted to scream at her. The next I wanted to beg her to stay. She acted normal. Still packed lunches. Still asked about my day. Still slept in our bed. That was the cruelest part. At night, I'd lie awake listening to her breathe, wondering if she was thinking about him. Wondering if she'd compare us. I checked her phone eventually. I hated myself for it. The messages weren't graphic, but they were intimate. Plans. Jokes. A shared language I wasn't part of anymore. I cried in the shower like a cliché because it was the only place I felt allowed to fall apart. I started losing weight. Couldn't focus. Every small task felt monumental. Meanwhile, she kept saying, "I'm trying to do this kindly. Kindness doesn't look like this." Eventually, I confronted her again. Not calmly this time. I told her she couldn't have both. That staying while planning a life with someone else was emotional torture. That I deserved honesty, not this half-life. She accused me of being controlling. Of not understanding her growth. Of making her feel trapped. I almost believed her. That's the danger when you're already broken. You'll accept blame just to make sense of the pain. We argued in circles. She cried. I yelled. Then I apologized. I hated that I apologized. She said Daniel was willing to wait. That he understood she needed time. That he didn't pressure her. That hurt more than anything. The idea that he was patient and understanding while I was reduced to desperation in my own marriage. I asked if she'd stop seeing him. She said no. That was it. Something went quiet inside me. Not peace. Just resignation. I've never felt smaller. I questioned everything about myself. Was I boring? Unlovable? Too safe? Not enough? I replayed our entire relationship, looking for where I failed. Where I missed the chance to be someone she wouldn't replace. Some days I hated her. Other days I missed her so badly I could barely breathe, even though she was still there. That contradiction tore me apart. I felt guilty for being angry because she was honest now. I felt angry for feeling guilty. I stopped trusting my own emotions. I didn't know which ones were valid. The worst part was still loving her. Loving someone who had already left, at least in her heart. The kids noticed long before we admitted anything out loud. They always do. Children feel emotional weather shifts the way animals feel earthquakes, before the ground actually cracks. At first it was small things. My son asked why Mom didn't laugh at my jokes anymore. My daughter started climbing into my bed at night again, like she used to when she was little, her body stiff with questions she didn't know how to ask. Laura and I stopped touching in front of them. No casual hand on the shoulder. No shared glances. Just space. One evening, my son asked if we were getting divorced. Just like that. No drama. No tears. Like he'd been rehearsing the question for weeks. I froze. Laura looked at me like I should answer. I said, "We're working through some adult stuff." The words tasted fake even as they left my mouth. After that, everything felt dishonest. Every family dinner. Every school pickup. Every forced smile. The house was full, but emotionally hollow. Laura cried a lot around them. I tried not to. I didn't want them to feel responsible for my pain. But suppressing it made me distant, and distance has its own kind of cruelty. Extended family started asking questions. My mother called more often. Her tone carried that quiet suspicion parents get when they sense something is wrong but don't want to push. Friends noticed I stopped showing up. I stopped replying. Isolation felt safer than explaining a situation where I was both the betrayed husband and the man still living with his wife while she loved someone else. I felt like a failure as a husband and as a father. Like my inability to hold my marriage together had poisoned the emotional air my kids breathed every day. I worried about what this would teach them about love. About trust. About what's acceptable to endure. That guilt sits heavy. It still does. The end didn't come with slammed doors or explosive fights. It came with logistics. One afternoon, Laura told me she'd found an apartment. She said it gently, like she was talking about a necessary home repair. She emphasized that it was temporary, that she needed space to think clearly. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I surprised myself with how calm I was. I think some part of me had already mourned the marriage months earlier. She packed slowly, one drawer at a time. Every item she removed felt symbolic. A sweater she used to steal from me. A photo frame I hadn't noticed in years. Her side of the bathroom cabinet. The night before she left, we sat on opposite ends of the couch. She said she hoped we could do this with respect. I nodded, even though respect had already been shredded. When she walked out with that suitcase, the house made a sound I'd never heard before. Not silence, echo. Like the walls themselves were confused. Living alone in a house built for 4 people is unsettling. The quiet is aggressive. Every room feels oversized. Every habit feels wrong. I slept on my side of the bed for weeks before finally moving to the center. That felt like betrayal too. We filed for divorce months later. Mediation. Paperwork. Calm voices discussing the division of a life we once swore was inseparable. I signed where they told me to sign. I didn't fight for things I probably should have. It wasn't dramatic. That somehow made it worse. It's been almost a year now. On paper, I'm fine. I function. I show up. I pay bills. I attend school events. I cook dinner. I answer emails. I smile when expected. Internally, I feel like someone rebuilt me quickly with cheaper materials. Trust doesn't come naturally anymore. Even small kindnesses make me suspicious. Compliments feel conditional. Promises feel temporary. Laura is with Daniel now. Officially. Publicly. Social media photos. Weekend trips. The whole visible future she used to talk about in theory. She told me she hopes we can be friends someday. That she values me. That she'll always care. I don't know what to do with those words. They feel like leftovers from a meal I wasn't invited to. Dating feels impossible. Not because I don't want connection, but because I don't know how to enter something new without carrying this damage with me. I'm afraid of becoming the kind of man who checks phones, reads tone too closely, expects abandonment. The kids are adjusting. They're resilient in the way that breaks your heart. They accept the new normal faster than I ever could. That both comforts and devastates me. Some nights I still wake up expecting to hear her breathing beside me. When I don't, the loss hits all over again. Healing isn't linear. Some days I feel strong. Other days I feel like I'm back at the beginning, staring at that chat window on her laptop. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand what actually happened, not just the affair, but the emotional mechanics of it. I've learned that love doesn't always end with explosions. Sometimes it fades quietly while one person keeps pretending it's still there. I've learned that emotional infidelity can be just as destructive as physical betrayal, maybe more so, because it rewrites history while you're still living in it. I've learned that being, understanding, can turn into self-erasure if you're not careful. That compassion without boundaries is just slow self-harm. I also learned something uncomfortable about myself, how much I tied my identity to being chosen. When that choice was withdrawn, I didn't just lose my wife, I lost my sense of worth. Therapy helped me see that. Slowly. Painfully. I don't think Laura is a monster. That might be the hardest truth. She's human. Flawed. Confused. Capable of loving and hurting at the same time. That complexity doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains why healing has been so messy. There's no clean villain in this story. Just consequences. If there's anything I want to leave here, it's this. Pay attention to the quiet moments where your instincts whisper instead of scream. The pauses. The emotional distance. The subtle shifts in language. Those are often where the truth lives. I ignored those signs because acknowledging them meant risking the life I thought was safe. I also want to say this: if someone tells you they love you while actively building a future that doesn't include you, believe their actions over their words. Love without loyalty is just sentiment. I'm still grieving. Not just the marriage, but the version of myself who believed love alone was enough. Some nights I feel hopeful. Other nights I feel hollow. Both can be true. I don't know what my future looks like yet. I just know it will be honest, even if it's lonely for a while. And maybe that's the first real foundation I've had in a long time.